You've got Bill Zenk here. I'm a principal and practice leader of TrueNorth's Risk Solutions Group. This is the next in a series of webinars we're doing in 2022, all driven around risk solutions and supporting our clients with their ability to manage risk more effectively. Today, we're going to focus on data management. If you wouldn't mind jumping ahead. Thank you, Danny. I'm joined by Stephen Godfrey of Metafora. He's the Vice President of Technology. Megan Thirtyacre, who's our data analyst and business intelligence leader. And Matt Kane, our client solution architect, all contributors today on the webinar. So again, thanks for everybody joining. If you want to jump one more. So for those that may not know TrueNorth and our risk and workforce solutions group, as you've probably come to know at TrueNorth, what our mission statement is to help our clients protect and maximize their business. And so what we aspire to do within our risk and workforce solutions group is to augment that mission and really hone in on areas that clients are managing risk that create better insurance renewal outcomes. And so if you jump to the slide ahead, Danny, where our group is focused is really 6 core areas. We're focused in the legal, counsel and regulatory compliance, the HR strategies, safety, well-being and loss control, claims advocacy, technology and analytics, and communication strategies. And so with our focus in risk and workforce solutions, today we wanted to really talk about data and data management because, we believe the whole issue and topic around big data is creating a competitive advantage or disadvantage for organizations across all industry sectors. And the ability to more effectively manage data across disparate systems and dial it into the point where you can make it tangible and actionable, create better risk management outcomes. And so we're really excited to have Stephen join us today at Metafora. They've developed some proprietary solutions to help connect data and allow companies to better manage data effectively. And Megan Thirtyacre will be talking more in depth about what we're doing with clients to intake data from disparate systems and prop it up into key performance indicators that do make it, in fact, more actionable and guide your people on the most critical issues that drive risk inside the business and can have high impact on driving it out. So with that said, if we jump to the agenda here, we'll give it over to Stephen. And again, he'll talk a little bit about who is Metafora and some of their strategies that hopefully can be useful to you as you contemplate managing data inside your business. And I'll also talk to you a little bit about their proprietary solution socket that's helping a lot of companies in various industries connect their data throughout their organization. So with that said, pleased to introduce Stephen. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Bill, and good morning, everybody. So my name is Stephen Godfrey. I lead the technology team at Metafora. I've been with Metafora for about 2 years, and before that have a long career in the technology consulting space. So as Bill said, I want to give a quick introduction to Metafora, who we are, what we do, and then I'll spend the rest of the time divided between talking about data strategy and data management, why it's important, what some of the challenges are, and then spend a few minutes talking about Socket, which is our integration platform offering to help solve some of the data management challenges out there in the industry today. So next slide, please. So Metafora is a consulting company that focuses exclusively on the transportation and logistics space. We have 4 key pillars: traditional management consulting, doing strategy, process improvement, and then other things specific to the industry, such as compensation and M&A initiatives. We have a technology consulting arm that focuses on technology strategy, architecture, buy versus build analysis, procurement strategies, some things particular to the industry as well. We have a large technology delivery group that talks about how we build custom software for clients that is all cloud native, all modern architectures to really address challenges that companies are having that can't be solved by commercial platforms. And then the fourth piece is Socket, which I mentioned is our integration platform offering that I'll spend a few minutes talking about today. Next slide. We're a team of just over 100 people at the moment. Here are some of our industry experts, some of our leadership team, and some of the different companies that we have, that our team has worked with in the past, some of the history and sort of skill set that we bring to the table. Okay, so let's jump right in. So data strategy is not something that can be independently focused on. It is part of a company's overall business strategy and really includes everything from the high-level business strategy to people to, of course, the data itself and the processes around it. So we look at data strategy as these four pillars. The first is that focus on the business strategy. It has to start with, how is the business going to use the data? What are the key objectives? What are the measurements, the KPIs, the metrics, both short and long term, that need to be addressed, and how is the data going to address that? And then, of course, ongoing reviews to make sure that there is continued alignment there in terms of the right data being used. Organizationally, who are the key stakeholders? What are the key roles and responsibilities across the organization? Data strategy is not an IT only or a technology only focus. It is absolutely something that encompasses the entire organization. Data is spread out throughout companies all over the place. It's a spider web typically. So being able to identify those key stakeholders and those key roles will help avoid data duplication and define the right owners for that data so that they can come together at the business level to make sure that that there is no or very little duplication. Certainly no duplication is a tough goal to achieve. From a data management point of view, this is where we get into data governance, data quality, data integration, all of the key technology areas that need to be focused on in order to get that consistent view of the business data. And of course, that's primarily supported by a data architecture. So what are the tools and processes that are going to be used to manage and analyze the data? Obviously, the public cloud offerings these days make this much easier than it used to be in terms of data ingestion, in terms of data storage, certainly, and in terms of data analysis. So lots of amazing tools out there to use to help set up this data architecture and get that data flowing throughout the business. Next slide. So from a data management point of view, this is how you actually support the data in your environment. How do you optimize it? How do you use it? And how do you make sure that you're getting the right usage out of it? As we all know, the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? So we want to make sure that the data that is coming in or already lives in your environment is being utilized effectively. So as I mentioned, data governance and stewardship is really one of the most important pillars here. Having somebody or a group that has that oversight of the data in the organization, making sure that it's accessible, that it's trusted, and who's really focused on making sure that data is available. Data quality is another key pillar in data management. We've got to ensure that data is complete and accurate coming into the environment. And then data normalization or transformation is very often necessary to get that data into a similar usable format for whatever those outputs or objectives are. Data very frequently originates from many different sources within an organization. So we need to be focused on how to get that data into a similar structure and similar formats to make sure it can be analyzed effectively, and also getting timely access to that data. All of this is supported with data integration. So what are the connections to get the data from the source systems to the target systems? How do we look at enriching that data to improve its value and its efficiency? And of course, reducing the amount of errors that are in that data to avoid rework later on. We want to automate this integration process as much as possible so that data is effective at the target and can be effectively used by by those who are consuming it. Okay, so in terms of architecture, it's funny in a way how simple this is in some respects, and yet how difficult it is in others. This is a very high level reference architecture that can be used in any environment, in any cloud. There's a number of tools that can be plugged into these different areas, but it's really focused on three key things. Number one is those source systems, getting the data out of those source systems into a centralized repository or a transition system. So whether that is through a change data capture, if you've got really legacy data from either mainframes or older database applications, whether it's ETL, whether it's APIs, whatever that mechanism is to get the data from the source systems, there are various tools that can be used there. In terms of those storage systems in the middle column here, whether it's an overall MDM solution, whether it's a data lake or data warehouse, these are all popular ways of storing data at the moment for use by all kinds of other systems. And then the downstream applications on the far right. So this is where we get into analytics and visualization and reporting and lots of cool tools and solutions out there these days to be able to visualize the data that you have and get those insights that you need. But it all starts from the left, flowing through to make sure that data is accessible to all those other systems. So as I say, from a visual point of view, it's really not that difficult here, but obviously getting all of that data organized internally and getting it integrated into one solution and getting it flowing through your environment, that's where the big challenges happen. Next slide. So what we're seeing in the transportation and logistics industry these days and over the last few years are really three key areas. The first is data silos. So this is not necessarily unique to the industry and not new either, but data is everywhere. It's hiding in all those closets and all throughout the company. And many companies have been built on and grown from acquisitions. And this has really kept data even more siloed rather than bringing it together, right? When acquisitions happen, there are disparate systems from different companies, and that helps keep the data siloed rather than bringing it together. Data transformation is another big challenge, bringing all that data together from those different silos. It's in different formats, in different structures. It means different things to different systems. How to get that all together, planning for that normalization and transformation is absolutely a huge challenge these days. And finally, managing integrations. The cost of managing those enterprise integrations is very high. It increases that friction for expansion and growth because you're then increasing the amount of integrations that you've got to manage. And that also constrains scalability. The more that you have to manage, the more disparate systems you have, the harder it is to scale that data and to bring it all together. So these are some of the key challenges that we're seeing in the industry these days. Next slide. And one of the ways that we think we can solve some of these challenges is through our transportation integration platform, which we have coined Socket. On the next slide. So what is Socket? It's a configurable platform that is designed to enable easier and faster integration between all the different players in the industry, shippers, brokers, carriers, and of course, technology providers, and offloads the maintenance and the integration and the management of all of that from you to us. So we will build these integrations, we will monitor and measure them, we'll configure them to match all sorts of different source and target systems. And as I say, manage that on an ongoing basis to take that load off of you so you can focus on the outputs of that data, the visualization, the insights, and the stuff that really matters. Next slide. So this is a very high level architecture of what Socket is, but essentially being able to take all of your data from those disparate systems and integrate it into either your partners, other customers, TMSs, visibility providers, potentially asset management solutions, and of course, many others. It's designed to be that bridge between those two and enable data to flow back and forth both ways. And again, offload the maintenance and the management of all those integrations away from you so you can focus on your core business and those data insights. So If these are problems that you're seeing, do you have a lot of one-off integrations that you're managing and taking a lot of time from your technical team to focus on these? Are you constantly looking at mapping and remapping fields for these integrations because of changes in the data in the source systems? Are you constantly maintaining and monitoring those data flows and those integrations and looking for failures and errors and having to deal with them when they happen? Are you challenged with how you prioritize your partner integrations, the people who want to share data with you, but needing the time and the effort to figure out how to do that and to plan for that? One of the biggest challenges, I think, in this industry is EDI everywhere. This is a common format, a common protocol that is very legacy and very prevalent, but challenging to deal with. And of course, FTP and flat files as well. How do we integrate all of those different types of data transmission into one easy to use platform? So these are all areas that Socket can help solve. As I say, providing configurable integrations and mapping and taking that load off of you and your staff. Support for all sorts of transmission types, whether that's API, FTP, XML, EDI, whatever is out there. We're targeting all those methods. We'll also have a monitoring and dashboard solution, so you can see exactly how much volume is going through, where those errors are, how they're being addressed. And then alerting and monitoring as well for those to monitor the consistency and the efficiency of those integrations. And of course, privacy and security of the data as well. We are shortly going to be SOC 2 certified to show the focus on privacy and security of your data. So if these are all challenges that you are seeing in your business and with your customers and your partners, we're happy to talk to you further about how Socket can solve these problems for you. So thank you very much. And I know we're going to take some questions at the end, but if there are any now, I don't know, Danny, if there are any that we might want to take.
Not at this moment, but I'm sure some will come up at the end.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that information. We're going to jump now to Megan Thirtyacre, who again, she heads up our analyst team and is lead architect on our business intelligence platform for clients. And so what her team does day to day is kind of putting into motion on the risk management side what Stephen just described. His team is doing on all things data inside an organization. And so with that said, I'm going to hand it to Megan to take us through a demonstration of our Synergy Power BI platform.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, so hopefully everyone can see my screen here. What Bill began to describe a bit is what we call our Energy BI platform. It's part of our Synergy BI solution. And it is a data management solution that we have built for our motor carriers to help them kind of capture data from various data sources, public data, and then we kind of transform and load that data into a data warehouse to use in this reporting tool. And what we've done is developed a standard set of kind of KPIs, industry-specific KPIs here that I'll demonstrate, but we also do custom solutions for any of our clients who may require other various KPIs as related to their specific business. So I'll just kind of dive right in here. And so what you're seeing on the screen is the executive dashboard of our Energy BI solution. And this screen is intended as a 10,000 foot view of the various KPIs that we've established for specific clients. So on the upper left-hand side, you'll see one of the KPIs we've developed is accidents per million miles. We also look at driver turnover and revenue per truck. And at the bottom, of course, the ever important CSA performance. And what we want to kind of show on this screen is just a very quick snapshot of where the business is performing at the highest level of the organization. So all of the different segments of the business together. And then, of course, we like to look at this on a gauge so that we can see where the performance is as related to their goals that have been established for each of the KPIs. So what I'll do is dive into each one of these KPIs and see how we can then further segment the data down to identify areas of opportunity. So we'll look first at the loss analysis, which is the accidents per million miles KPI. So what we've done here is organize the data such that in the upper left-hand side, you're able to see your KPIs at a whole macro level. And in these scorecards here, you're able to compare a one time frame as compared to the next time frame. So if you wanted to look at how your data or how you performed in 1 year versus the next year, you can do that. So in this case, in 2018, this client's accidents per million miles score was 33.15, whereas in 2019, they improved it to 27.68. So it's allowing them to offer a comparison here of how their performance has changed over time. And then in order to further evaluate how different segments of the business are performing, we can offer a scorecard that segments the data by whatever segment is relevant to a client's business. So in this case, they have various locations where they wanted to look at their KPIs on a by location basis. This allows them to then identify areas of opportunity for training by looking at maybe some of the locations where the scores have either severely increased or are maybe higher. And one of the things you'll note is that we establish a goal for the KPI, and these red, green, yellow values identify whether they're at or above or below goal. So it helps you quickly identify and pick those out. So in this specific example, Portland, Oregon is at 139.95. It's one of the higher KPI values. And this might be one of those terminals or locations where training or development may need to be deployed to help improve the accidents per million mile KPI. And then on the upper right-hand side, of course, we provide just some very high-level data points around the frequency of accidents, the mileage values, and the loss cost as well. And then provide some trend lines around how the data is, how the KPI is performing over time to show, is there improvement occurring with the various deployments of training or other opportunities that you're presenting within the different segments of the business. One of the great things about Power BI, if you've never been exposed to it, is that it's very, very intuitive as far as how it works. It's much like working in a PowerPoint presentation or even an Excel charting tool. But one of the great things is that if you want to drill down into some of these other specific terminals or data points, you can simply click on any of these, and then the data in the other charts and visualizations will update so that you can see specifically how Denver, Colorado has been performing over the course of time. One of the other additional data points that you can look at is what types of losses by frequency and severity. So you can now identify that in Denver, some of their most frequent loss types are floor damage, whereas loss of control are the most severe of those losses. And again, it's very user-friendly. You can kind of click around, drill down, dive in, and see what data points you want just by kind of clicking around within the data. Additionally, there's other filters that you can apply at the top. So if you wanted to look at whether a claim was or loss was a DOT reportable claim, you could apply a filter there to show that value, or was it a preventable claim, that type of thing. So again, this is meant to provide not only the 10,000-foot view of how the business is performing as a whole, but then also segment down so that you can identify those areas of opportunity to deploy some sort of training or other solutions. As I mentioned at the beginning, we do customize many of these for our clients' needs. There are organizations who don't necessarily have various terminals, but maybe have driver managers that they want to segment this data by. Other segments are available as well, very customizable, just based on the business needs. So I'll dive into another KPI really quickly, which is driver turnover analysis, another very hot topic within the transportation industry. But again, you'll notice that much of the layout of this is the same, looking for that nice kind of ease of use between the KPIs, a very high level turnover score as compared from a previous year to a current year, the number of drivers added and terminated, and then that kind of trend line over time down here at the bottom. And then again, data segmented by the various locations. Another KPI that we've developed is revenue per truck. That is one that's leveraged quite frequently. And again, I won't dive in too much into this, but very similar layout provides the opportunity to compare a year-over-year comparison at the company level, as well as by a terminal or by driver manager, or what other segment might be defined by the business. And then I know one of the most hot topics is Csa analysis. So I'll spend a little bit more time looking at this. We do have a few more data points available on this screen, but generally the same concept, where we're providing a kind of by segment overview of the KPI that we've defined as violation points per truck by location. There are others who look at strictly the number of violations by location or by driver manager. Again, several different KPIs that we've identified build to suit for each of our integrations. Of course, we spend a lot of our screen space on those Csa scores and whether or not motor carriers are in alert status for any of the different basics. For example, on safe driving here, they're in alert 68% on a goal of 60%. So identifying those very prominently on the page, as they are obviously pretty important. And then in the upper right-hand side, just looking at some high-level metrics, number of violations, the number of inspections, violation points, which is calculated by looking at the time severity and the time weight and the severity weight of each violation. Then, of course, we do want to look at clean inspections, because it is important to find areas in the business where we're having success and be able to replicate what's happening in those segments of the business as well. And then just an overall high level violation points per truck score for the company. Then we also like to look at, what is the frequency of violations by month? So, is there a trending that we can identify for the business? And then violation severity by month, again, looking at those violation points, that score that we look at severity, time severity, and severity weight. But then I think one of the most interesting pieces of data here is being able to look at any one of these segments and identify what are the most frequent types of violations. So here I've clicked on Tucson, Arizona, who is having their most frequent violations in light and lamp violations and tire violations. So again, easily able to identify training opportunities and or maintenance opportunities that may be able to help improve those scores, over time as, violations go down or potentially decrease in severity. And then the last chart that I'll show here is just the performance percentile by month. So looking at a trend line over time of how your scores are performing in each of the various basics so that you can see, are you trending downwards or upwards? And then the ability to kind of click on any one of those, for example, take a glance here at driver fitness. We can click directly on that specific basic and look further at that trend line. And not only does it filter this visualization to show only driver fitness scores, but it should also update the additional visualizations above. So that is Energy BI in a nutshell.
Thank you, Megan. The other thing I'd add on the data and then how to ultimately implement it, use it inside your business is once you kind of have your core risk KPIs in place, the goal of those data points and some of the undertone of Megan's commentary here is the fact that we tie in both operational and risk-based data. And what we're trying to ultimately do is get the organization to drive culturally the highest impact, activities that drive the most results. So it truly is kind of the manifestation of this 80-20 principle. And when we have found organizations buy into the management of data and combining operational and risk data together, and then starting to drill it down into different segmentation, you start to help the operators of the organization understand how they're contributing either positively or negatively to the overall risk profile of your organization. And so the goal for us is to expose this data to the operators and then have the operators work hand in hand with the folks in charge of safety loss control and risk management on those critical few issues. And once you get that, kind of accomplished and set as an infrastructure, we really start to see that, downward trend that all organizations are looking to drive. And by managing that activity day to day, then organizations over time create, what we call non-events at insurance renewals and more confidence in their control position so that over time they can move from buying insurance to financing risk and taking on larger and larger deductibles because they know that their organization is more predictable when it comes to overall loss activity. So, coupled with Stephen's commentary of how organizations are thinking about, taking the disparate sources of data, putting it into a socket type resource, and then propping it up visually on both the operational side of data sets and then Megan's kind of additional commentary around how companies are then tying in the risk data set. It's a really interesting time right now where I think companies like Metafora and some of the things we're doing and then just the internal development of transportation companies and them getting smarter about how to manage big data is really transforming the industry and making it more impactful. And where we're trying to kind of gap fill within risk solutions is areas where we can help support taking data in, visualizing it, and then coupling that with subject matter experts to help really drive or pull out the most critical issues that impact results. So we're having a lot of fun with it. We're seeing significant impact. And again, Steven's team is doing some amazing work. We've recently met them, and some of their case studies and what they're doing in transportation are really interesting, and driving a lot of efficiency inside organizations. And Megan, we've been working together for, 6-7 years at least, I think. And, things that we're starting to see develop over time with our clients in terms of that control position and really maximizing data management is improving their ability to buy insurance more efficiently as they manage risk more effectively. So we appreciate the time today. Danny, I don't know if you want to prop up the last couple slides here, but I believe we maybe had one or two questions come in, but can you give us some feedback on questions from the audience potentially?
I don't have any questions at this moment, but if anyone on the call has any, please use the chat box in the Q&A.
Danny, I believe we had one submitted before the call on ROI. And we may flip that one to Stephen, maybe first to give some commentary. But could you give us some feedback on that question, and then we'll let Stephen respond?
Yeah. So what examples do you have of a proven ROI to utilize your resources? Decision-making at my company is predicted on a real ROI.
Thanks. So I think for us, from an ROI point of view, it's not necessarily an easy answer, because it depends on obviously what the context is and what the situation is. We typically look at what are the insights that are trying to be gained. What is the value of having that data or being able to make that decision based on what the question is. Typically, there is an element of a case study involved in that to really define it. But since we're dealing more with either the raw data or the integration of that data, it's not something that can be easily answered by just looking at our solution or our platform. So unfortunately, that's that's the only feedback I have on that question.
From our standpoint, I appreciate that, Stephen, and you're right. That's a wide-ranging question, and it can be very project specific. I think where we've slotted in at TrueNorth in kind of helping our clients manage their risk data, there's a couple ROIs for us that end up playing out for most of our clients. One is, we believe people are the most expensive and valuable resource an organization have. And so what we've seen play out is, this idea that executives, we've never heard an executive leadership team at a transportation company say, I'm overstaffed in my risk safety compliance department. And so what we've seen is a lot of companies can kind of take all of these data sets and prop up their analytics, their KPIs, and they might do it on nights and weekends, and then they have their day job to take care of keeping the business moving forward and don't have the opportunity to kind of act on the data. And so from our perspective, it's let's take that kind of important but tactical work of grabbing data and visualizing it and then helping a company analyze it and let the people actually act on it inside the business to help them target and transform critical change. The other thing we see from an ROI standpoint is, a lot of organizations are in this place where they're managing what we call total cost of risk. And so they're taking on some deductible level, some risk financing infrastructure where they may be managing some level of losses inside their insurance program internally, and then shifting the rest to the insurance company. So whether they're taking a $10,000 or $100,000 or $500,000 deductible, there's some level that they're managing internally. And so what we try to do is, with an investment in a company like TrueNorth and our risk solutions group, we want to make sure there's an ROI on an improved impact of loss outcomes and compliance outcomes immediately. And then longer term, we're looking to also improve the risk profile of the organization so that they can eventually move up the chain of deductibles, as I mentioned earlier, because they have more confidence in their control position, and then suppress over time their total cost of risk. And that's, as I mentioned, that's played out time and time again. So the ROI for us is a nominal investment, and it's packaged into this total cost of risk idea for a company. And then over time, you get 10x, 100x type ROI as your organization matures and it becomes really ingrained into the culture. So that's a good question, and I think it's an important one for folks on the line that are probably talking about what's the ROI for data management, kind of coming back to the organization. That's how I think we've seen it play out with clients today. Danny, did any other come in? Otherwise, I think we can probably wrap here.
Nope, that was great though. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate everybody joining us today. Your time is valuable, and we hope you had some insights. You've got both Stephen and my contact information on the screen here. And true to our typical format, we will be following up with everyone that joined us today with a video recording, as well as the digital presentation for your review. And if you'd like us to talk more to you, explore further what resources we may be able to support your organization with, please feel free to reach out to Stephen or myself, and we're happy to talk more.
Great. Thanks, everyone.